While I am waiting for a call back to report what happened to me yesterday, I'm going to pull out this little treat I bought for myself from Aldi. If you've ever had quiche Lorraine, I like quiche Lorraine. There is my girl right there with me, because she's doing it too. I was very surprised at all the spinach that was on this pizza. I don't think I've ever seen that much spinach on a pizza. This is Paul Newman's own. I like to chop up my own fresh tomatoes. The girls are hungry too. It's time to eat. I try to buy food that has meat as the first ingredient. So far, they're liking this one. Got my Christmas pants on this morning. That's their new elevated food station. It's supposed to be healthier for them when they eat. So I also like to chop fresh onion to add to my pizza. Sometimes I'll add mushroom, green pepper, red pepper. But this is all I had today. So red and green are colors that are from a pagan tradition, which goes along with witchcraft. Red and green are opposite colors on the color wheel. One is physical and one is astral, or vice versa. So that's the idea behind that. Here's my book where I am reviewing Yule, because I mean, even I have to go back and refresh my memory sometimes. So I'm cleaning off a space on the coffee table for me to sit here today and decorate a little bit. There is, I love this thing. There's the red and green. And then I'll talk about the tree in a minute. So today I'm having a late lunch. It snowed yesterday and it snowed today. One thing I discovered is that black cherry or tart cherry juice helps to realkalize my body. Here I'm adding a sparkling ice sugar-free drink. One time I had laryngitis, and when I got some cherry juice, within 30 minutes it was gone. And that plate is from the Dollar Tree. So the evergreen, which is a pine tree, is brought in as a symbol of everlasting life and hope for life to continue. So I might go and read from the book for a minute, but you know, it's so funny because, well, it's a beautiful synchronicity. When I was pregnant with my first child and we bought our mobile home, I chose a space on a street called Douglas. And then it was, I don't know, 5-6 years later, I guess. No. 7 or 8 years later, I realized that, you know, I was learning that I was a witch. But I had said, we have the biggest tree in the entire mobile home park. It was ginormous. I didn't know what it was. I found out it was called a Douglas fir. Our street was Douglas. It was a Douglas fir. And I think that was one of the more common trees. Anyway, it depends on the region of the United States that you live in. And it wasn't too long after that, I've journaled the progress of my realizations that my familiar Tabby came into my life. And he was under that tree. And I wrote that I learned about trees and my connection to trees from Tabby. Yes. And I believe he was really my first familiar, and I had actually done a summons for him, although I didn't know that was actually what I had done. And I talked about that in my playlist about familiars. As I was realizing my new self and all these different feelings I was having, that I really needed to get rid of all this guilt I had about losing the cats I had in my life before, and that I wanted a tabby and I wanted a male cat and I would keep it for 20 years. Now, he didn't live that long because he got in so many fights. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead now and try to put this up on my kitchen cabinet here with some ornaments, and I'll tell you the rest of the pagan tradition. Okay. So when my kids were younger, I started getting them as I was learning, and I was reading the Silver Raven Wolf book. To Ride a Silver Broomstick was about the 4th book, I think, that I got. And my spirit guide had been telling me with signs and symbols that you're a witch. And so I finally said it, you know, I'm a witch. So I was learning the traditions, and I was just soaking everything in like a sponge. And so one of the dreams I had had reminded me of the charge of the goddess that was in there, and I had gotten in touch with the feminine divine within myself. And it's just so important for everybody. But we actually one year, believe it or not, strung popcorn. The kids got into it with me. And so I made popcorn and I thread a needle. We did it, I don't know how many strings, but I think we were able to get it around our tree a couple of times. And I think I bought some fake cranberry beads. And that's another thing that would really be threaded and put on the tree, would be the red cranberries. And then I believe some people actually use orange slices and cinnamon. I mean, if you think about what did they have back in those days, they had to use what they had. So, but in, you know, the colors and the meaning of the tree is, I think, probably one of the most important parts to it. So let me grab my book. Here's another candle holder. I got it at Goodwill the other day, and I've seen it at the other Goodwill. I really need to get a second one to match. But I love things that have these scrolls. I've got a big one over there from Goodwill. And then I got a red candle. I don't have any green ones, but that's okay. So let me grab my book here. All right, so there are different kinds of celebrations depending on your tradition. For example, I'm a shamanic witch on the Celtic path and the Druidic tradition. And it is pretty typical for people that have ancestry of the European ancestry, right? Your ancestors were European, the Norse, the Germanic, the Celtic region. Then, you know, that's an indication as to whether or not you're not just maybe a psychic, but maybe you're a witch. So, now the 12 days of Christmas comes apparently from the Teutonic, well, let's see, the Teutonic Yuletide is the 20th or the 21st of December, which is probably when we have our winter solstice. Did my camera just go crooked? Okay, Yuletide, the Teutonic version, lasts from December 20th through December 31st. It begins on Mother Night and ends 12 days later on Yule night. Hence the 12 days of Christmas. Okay, so until the 31st, right? Yeah, from the 20th to the 31st. Pecta Victa Yule falls on December 22nd and is called Fiolafionain. Caledonian tradition is called Alban Arthon. Is not considered a fire festival. It is a time when the Holly King, representing the death aspect of the god, is overcome by the Oak King, who embodies the birth of the god, sometimes referred to as the divine child. It says here the waxing sun overcomes the waning sun. This is a solar festival, and it is a time very powerful actually, where we can not only connect to death as being a part of life and the cycle of life, but where we can do magic, not just on Halloween or New Year's Eve, to set intentions for the new year, but we can add to that in this winter solstice to reinforce what it is we would like to have for the coming year. And I typically have done that type of magic, I think, around the 25th. Whatever day it was, we had the winter solstice, like the longest night. And that can happen the day before or the day after. The exchanging of gifts is a pagan tradition. Wreaths of holly and fancy cookies and breads are also a part of the pagan tradition. Food is prepared especially for the after-dinner Yule celebration, when the tree is lighted and a Yule log is burned. The Yule log kind of has a whole separate story on its own. Again, it represents the coming of the sun, the rebirth of the sun. That winter doesn't last forever. And hopefully everything that they had stored up for the winter, was enough to get them through. A portion of the Yule log is saved to be used in lighting next year's log, representing how, one year leads to the next, but the past is still there. In other words, progress is not progress if we don't remember the past. This piece is kept throughout the year to protect the house. Bayberry candles are burned to celebrate wealth and happiness. The reindeer stag is a reminder of the horned god. So if she says here, if you go to choose a card for your Christian friends as well as your pagan friends, then you can choose a card with a reindeer on it, and they would never really understand what that means to us, see? And that is what I have done really throughout the years. I have and my children know this too because I told them, this represents the stag, and I probably read the information to them, and so that when I would find the little reindeers, I would buy them and I would put them around the house, and this one is on the tree. So obviously we live in a modern world, and things change from time to time. I don't always want the same kind of tree. I'm not going to be hanging cranberries or oranges on my tree or popcorn. So, I want to have a peppermint theme this year, and usually I just had all kinds of red and green, and I wanted a very whimsical, fun tree this year because I felt like I really needed that. I've kind of been through a lot this year in many ways, and I've made it through. Now, my kids are gone. I don't have Christian friends, so I know I'm not really going to have this Merry Christmas sign out in here. I'm not trying to be angry, but now up here would be a 5-pointed star, or to me, it's a pentagram. That's all it's ever been. If they're using the North Star to represent, I guess, the Christ, but otherwise, any 5-pointed star is really a pentagram. The North Star looks different. It's got like a longer tail, right? Because I have that. I bought that. But yeah, let me go get my stag. See? They have things like this at Walmart, Dollar Tree, everywhere. So it's one way you can hide your pagan faith in plain sight. And I keep this on my altar in the bedroom, and nobody would really know what it means to me if they came in here and they saw it. But a lot of these traditions were allowed, they were brought in to the church, the institutionalized religion, in order to bring the pagans into the fold. They adopted all of these ideas, or they adapted them, and they changed a few and they added a few things in order to try to make the pagans feel comfortable and bring them into the fold. So that's just another, remaining on your path and keeping your love and your conviction for it, because you know it's truth and that we are a part of nature and nature is a part of us. Unfortunately, it's not come to full knowledge for everybody yet, and we sometimes have to live within the community and sort of, adapt, put a few things that represent our faith that nobody else would really question or know. So that is what Yule basically is, without, getting any more in-depth to it. Whatever else our ancestors did, putting things on a tree that were gruesome or questionable, we didn't live in those times. We weren't there. We don't know what they were going through, and they were doing the best they could with what they knew. But for the most part, it's just about honoring the fact that life does continue. All right. See you on the next video.